Howdy! How exciting! I'm so excited you're here. Come on in. Man, this is good to see you all. And if you're here, just so you know, like on YouTube, hey everybody on YouTube, this is Cyndi. I would love for you to have your video on. I'm on gallery view. YouTube, it's just me, but I love connecting with everybody. It's key for me. Hey Natega, this hour, I'm just sinking in. Uh,
So I have a friend. I was.
Um, the intention is for direct experience. The intention is for direct experience. The truth of the matter is, if you're here in this room, right, or if you're watching the YouTube, you've gotten you've gotten a bucket full of content, right, and a whole bunch of concepts and teachings, more than enough, more than at any time in history, right? We have access to the greatest teachings from so many different areas, all at our fingertips, all online. So if you want to sink in and connect with me and just be here, our intention is for direct experience. Our intention is to join together um, in an experience of what it's like to be in the flow. Uh, and so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a little picture to begin with as a back frame, because we really do our current moment of experience, our experience of this moment right now is, in many ways, it's based on our expectations, right? And in so many ways, this moment is being experienced based on our belief structure. And all of the major teachings, they give us different creation stories, they give us different models, and we all know a lot of them. None of them are true. Many of them are useful. And by that, I simply mean that as soon as we put words to anything, we've stepped away from the direct experience, if for no other reason than everyone interprets words differently. So I'm going to give you a picture. We're going to speak some things, and you're going to bring it into your space and interpret it based on everything you think you know and all your experiences, and you're going to create a picture of what I'm sharing. And so it's not the same. So I'm going to give us a map to work with. I'm going to give us some examples of what I mean. And then the intention is for us to share our own experiences. And I'll tell you why in a second. Yeah. So here's the picture. And it's not unique. Um, in of course in Take Another Look, when we did Robert Wolf about a month or so ago, right? He lit up for me this idea of the ground of our being. We have a lot of teachers that talk just about supreme consciousness, or in the if I'm Rupert Spira likes to say, if you insist on my speaking truth, I have to remain silent. So let's just for the purpose of this hour accept that in truth, there's nothing that separates you and I, that all there is the Tao, isness, consciousness, the universal divine flow. There's so many different names for it. Isness, aware consciousness. Um, and in this space that most of the awakened teachers like to call bliss, like you want to be there, they say, right? There's this rise and fall of experience. And Lisa Natali, for one, is the first one that gave me these pictures of clouds. So me sitting here feeling like a separate individual with a whole bunch of problems to solve feels like me, but let's just say it's a whole bunch of these dark clouds that have created a story of a me separate. And even though I can go on about my day and talk about how I know we're all oneness, the experience is one of separation. It's all this kind of dark, dense cloud cover. But over the years and the decades, every once in a while, we have, I don't know if David's in the room, he likes to use the word glimpse. We have these glimpses, we have these experiences that we call awakening experiences or enlightenment experiences or a shift, a miracle shift in perception. I literally don't care what words we call them, but something happens and our whole world, whether it's for a minute, an hour, a day, a couple of weeks or years, or changes. And it's like the clouds part for a while. And then often there's David. Often the clouds kind of come back. But in a meeting yesterday, David mentioned every time he has one of these glimpses, when the clouds cover us again, there's a change, there's a shift, right? So what I have learned is that when we talk about these glimpses in a group, they become a more real part of our walking around space. And it becomes harder for us to believe that we are the cloud. Of Course in Miracles language, it's easier to hang out in the borderland on the edge. And on the one side is all these problems and all the pain and all the struggles. And on the other side is the belief in the oneness and the bliss and the peace. And when we acknowledge these glimpses or these miracle moments, and we're hit with an ego storm or something that's very, very painful, it becomes easier to sit on this edge, on the borderline, and choose to believe the oneness and rest in the oneness. And when we do that, when we allow the clouds to storm and we rest in the truth of who we are, the clouds thin. And more we get, it becomes a cycle where we're feeding the awakening process, which is really not anything new. It's really just thinning this cloud cover. And just as I was sitting and waiting for one way that we could do this, there's 3 different types of experiences. Now, I don't want you to limit what you share based on that. But for me, I was able to put these experiences in 3 different buckets. The one that a lot of people like to talk about are the big ones. Like, wow, I knew the truth of who I was, and it lasted an hour, a day, 2 weeks, and then I became this small self again. I had an experience like that after 9/11. I used to work in the World Trade Center. I saw the plane hit this building. My sister lost some of her closest friends, tragedy. And for a period of, I don't know, 3-4 days, I was in crisis. And then one day I just laid down on the floor and I closed my eyes and I had this experience of, I call him the little Pillsbury Doughboy boy that walked across my field of vision. And he moved into the center, looked at me and just smiled and then walked off. I was not on this path really at that time, but when I opened my eyes again, I knew everything was fine. And for a couple weeks, maybe, I walked around, I couldn't understand why everybody was upset. It wasn't that I was teaching them, it wasn't that I was feeding concepts. It was like the fear just was gone. And I knew that there was nothing to worry about. That's like one of these wow stories. That was very early on my journey. The second kind of experience that's equally really valuable to talk about and acknowledge in a group like this is when we get guidance, whether it's because we've asked for it or not. There's just this knowing to take this job, or that this person I just met is a friend. And I've had a lot of these experiences. Even long before I started the spiritual journey, I was living in Massachusetts, and I was looking for a job, and I had a phone interview with someone who was in Amherst, New York. And I got off the phone and I had no clue what the company was like or even where Amherst, New York was. I opened up a map to find out because I knew I was moving there. Just knew. The first time I met Jeff Bailey, I was doing an interview with him. I started talking to him. 10 minutes into a Facebook Live, I started crying. His yoga has, and I knew that his teaching and his yoga was something my system craved. And I've been doing, now a yoga instructor for Vita Yoga. I've been doing his yoga about an hour a day for the last 3.5 years. It changed my life. But there was no, in the mind, there was no logical explanation. There was just a no. The third kind is something, and Sandra, I'm going to call your name out. I'm looking at you, but Sandra described this, that kind of experience so beautifully in a meeting we shared this week, where you're on this path, we're on this path, we know the processes. Somebody somehow in our life did something and we're upset. And instead of believing the upset, we step back and we ask to see it differently. And we could use whatever process is most alive for us, but we consciously, in this case, we consciously took our upset to the work, and there was a miracle transformation that took place. I've had lots of those experiences in my life. One of the most key that comes up for me is my sister said something to me about a year ago, and literally my whole system exploded. How dare she think that way about me? I was so upset. And instead of holding on to my upset, instead of continuing to rage at her, I got real quiet and went inside and asked the Holy Spirit. I went into the Course in Miracle kind of, it was very useful, and I asked to see it differently. And I clearly saw that all she did was poke on a belief I had about myself. And in the moment I saw it, I was able to hand it over to truth, and it dissolved, and it's been gone since. So those are examples. And what I'd love to do over these next 45 minutes is hear yours and share yours. And I'll say it, please raise your hand, and Rana's going to press all these buttons, and she'll have to go first if you don't. Would love for you to start raising your hands. And again, when you share, there's a number of things that happen. Number one, you're reteaching yourself that this is really part of your life experience. So it changes your experience of life. And you're also sharing what will turn out, you'll notice, is a joined experience. And when we share it in a space like this, we're changing our world, reminding ourselves who we are, as well as everybody else's who's hearing us, right? And we're going to rock this world. And then it becomes easier and easier and easier for us to choose the truth, choose the peace moving forward. Tessa.
Okay, great to be here. So I'd like to share just two. I've had some really big surrender experiences where my life just completely shifted in a moment of completely handing it over. So the first one was when I was about 43, and I was still codependent with my mom. I didn't know who I was. I couldn't get my life together. And we were literally sitting in the doctor's room. The doctor looked at my mom to give her a diagnosis of Alzheimer's. So he looked at her and said, "You've got Alzheimer's." And in that moment, I heard a voice, just kind of the soft voice saying, "Tessa, it's time to cut the cord with your mom. You need to stand on your own feet and take full responsibility for your life." And I did that. It's just like I found this power to just say, okay, I'm ending it. And in the next moment, I just gave my life to spirit. I wasn't on any particular path, but I just said kind of, "Lord, here I am." I just gave it over. And from that moment, from really not knowing anything, not getting anything together over the next couple of years, the interesting through my mom's Alzheimer's, I set up a very successful company doing home care. I kind of found my strength, my passion. I became financially independent. And it was just an amazing unfolding, that just kind of happened. And then I had another different but similar experience, which was just on like a year and a half ago. My mom had actually just passed at that point, and I was about to get my inheritance, and I was renting a place, and I was looking for a place to go and kind of settle, to buy some place. So I live in Johannesburg, South Africa. So everyone was heading down to the Western Cape. That was like where everyone was heading off to. And I had friends there. I thought, okay, I'm also heading off there. And I'm trying to plan a trip, trying to organize something. But my heart was just, the more I tried to plan it, the more shut down I felt. And eventually I was just thinking, I'm not even enjoying this. It's going to cost a fortune. I just canceled everything. And I just kind of, again, just handed it over. I thought, I don't know where to go. I'm letting go my plan, and I'm just going to stay in the emptiness. And a week later, I had a client who lived in an estate called Riverglades in Joburg. And she called me and said, I can't come to you. Would you mind coming to my place and doing a session at my place? So I said, "Yeah, fine, I'll come." And I came to this estate, parked my car, and she said, "Let's walk. It's on a river. Let's walk down to the river and let's do a session by the river." And as we walked again, I felt like spirit just being there. And as we're walking down the road, I see a sign saying Hippo Pool. And I say to her, "Can we go on this path?" And she said, "Okay." And we just go on this path. That was where I felt guided. And we ended up on these beautiful rocks overlooking the river. And we did a session on this rocky outcrop in this estate. And as I walked back to my car, I just heard spirit say to me, "This is your place." And I looked online, the places, this is where I'm living now, places were affordable, and it just unfolded. So, yeah, I just find the willingness to just give it over and rest in the emptiness and just kind of listen. It has been the most powerful moments of my life. I can't hear you on mute.
Oh yeah. When I mute, I don't expect you to hear. They're just gorgeous stories. I feel really, really blessed, and thank you so much for sharing them. Who's next?
Thank you.
I'm so excited. Mary Beth, please.
Hi, and thank you for your stories, your sharing your experiences, because I have had so many, lots of little ones where I just know, and every time I'm aware of it and I choose to follow the inspiration, the direction or the experience and stuff, it's amazing. And not too many specifics are really coming to mind. I just know they can become every day, all day long events when I'm in that space. But a couple do come to mind. It was about 3, 4 years ago. Well, let's see, 3 years ago this month, pretty much Memorial Day weekend. And I had been living in Tennessee for about 10 years, having grown up in Connecticut. All my family's in New England and stuff, and no other family down there. And every time I came back to New England, I'd say, is it time to move back? And it's like, no, no. But, I had my community in down south and stuff, and I was happy. And this time came up for my nephew's wedding. And I just had this overall sense on the whole way, on the whole drive, just this unconditional love for all of my family, the extended family. And I was just so amazed because all my life I always wanted a little something back in return, right? But I felt like this unconditional love was overflowing. And it was the first time I left New England really feeling sad in these 10 years. I'd come back to visit. And I stopped in Pennsylvania and stayed overnight at a friend's house to split up the trip. And we were talking the next morning, and she said this or that. And it was during the pandemic, and real estate was really a seller's market. But she just said something, what you could get for your house if you sold. And in that moment, that exact moment, I knew I could come home. I didn't know how, right? I was by myself down there and everything. And, to clear out a house 10 years and all that was involved. And, but I just knew I could come home, and it opened up, and I proceeded to follow that feeling, that guidance, saying yes to what was presented. And I found myself seeking guidance every day as to what step to take, little things. It would be, clear out the garage, or even play. Some days it was play. And this was like the first week of June when I knew I'd be moving. And in the middle of August, I was loading up a U-Haul truck. I had downsized, gotten rid of 95% of my stuff, drove up here to Rhode Island, not knowing where I was going to live, just knowing I wanted to be back in New England. And just people, places, things were all placed in my life to follow that. And within 3 weeks of arriving in Rhode Island, I found myself living in Narragansett, which I never in a million years figured I'd be near the water, And it was just all truly following that guidance and saying yes to the next step, no matter what. I mean, this is dealing with realtors and contractors and uncertainty, and there was just peace, complete peace throughout the entire process. So thank you for the opportunity to share that.
And just before you go, and I can't wait to talk to Judy, a couple of things. I love that you started this conversation by saying nothing really comes to mind, but I've discovered it is possible to live this way. And here's what I mean, which is extraordinary. And the other thing, it's just a question, because it's what happens here. I could give you a million different examples of when I asked or guidance, the idea of the truth of who I am is here, the fear dropped. And even when there was a little anxiety, because it's not what the personality would do, which is what your story is, when you follow it, it's beautiful. Number one. Number two, it's always available. And your story represented that. The day-to-day. Like, living from the truth of who we are isn't just about the big moments. Your story reminded us that it's the guidance wasn't move and then it left you stranded. The guidance told you when to get the moving truck, and when it's sort of like the last story we heard, when to make a turn left and when to clean the house and when to go out to play. There's no need for the fear part of our mind to ever take over. And it blows me away how often I find it still trying. I'm going to remember your share, because it's really something that helps us. And it helps us when we wake up afraid of something at 2 o'clock in the morning. I know Chuck's in the house,
Yeah.
and he and I were talking. I think I saw Chuck here somewhere. We were talking last night, right? There he is. What is it about whatever's going on right now that I think my fear can handle better than God can? That's one of the things that knocks that out. And your story is going to help me hold to that. So thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Thank
Thank you,
you. Thank
Alenka.
you.
Hey, Judy, it's good to see you. There you go.
Hi, nice to see you again. Well, yes, those experiences that come just out of the blue and at times when you really are crying out for help and you just let it all go. I can't thinking of those experiences, it's hard for me to say which one. They were all miracles to me. And I remember one years ago where when I used to work, we had a new supervisor. And for some reason, when she came in, she disliked me totally right from the beginning. And this thing she would say to me, other people say, you shouldn't let her talk to you like that. You shouldn't take that, and that kind of stuff. I would go home crying once. And then one day, she did something that really got me angry. I sat at the computer and I typed up this very angry email to her. And I finished it. I sat back and I reread it. And all of a sudden, this feeling came to me. You don't need to send this. And I hit delete. And what happened was in 3 days, and happens a lot to me, this number 3 days, I always think of the Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, and it's solved. And her whole attitude towards me changed, and her and I actually became really good friends. So it was the letting go that did it to me. And I have this surrender box that Regina Dawn Akers talked about. And I always write on paper, stick it in there. And I'm watching as these things are coming to fruition through not me, like for instance, looking for a new place to live. And I wrote that, put it in there. And last May, I'm walking on my morning walk and I saw this little yellow house. And the fleeting thought came, if that ever goes for sale, I'm going to buy it. 3 days later, a friend in the village called me and said, there's a little yellow house for sale. And I bought it.
Is that where you are now?
Yes. And one other thing I'll be quick because I know there's others coming. Last year, around the beginning of March, I was on my walk. It was still like 2 feet of snow. I had my big boots on. I got to my daughter's place. It was warm out though. Things were melting. Still 2 feet of snow, but you could feel the warmth of the sun. And out on the pond at my daughter's house, the kids from next door had forgot to take my grandkids' hockey nets off the rink. So I thought, I got to go get mom. So I walked through the snow, checked the ice on the pond. It was 6 inches. Okay, good to go. 2 feet before I got to the hockey net, the ice broke and I fell in over it. I didn't go right under, but it was over my head. I couldn't touch bottom. So I immediately threw my arms up on the ice and started kicking my feet. And I'm throwing my arms on the ice, kicking my feet, doing this till I got to shore. I still had 250 feet to go through knee-deep snow, and I had lost one boot in the pond. My hands and feet were totally white. I got to the house, put my feet in the tub, and got them color back in. But the very strange, and this is to me how the universe, because I've always felt that the universe taking care of me. I don't need to worry. 3 weeks before this happened, I was watching The Voice on my computer, and a video popped up on the side, a 10-minute video, which I watched, and it said what to do when you fall through ice. So it was just like, that the universe is there. You don't have to be afraid of anything.
Taken care of. So I have a comment about your first story. There is, and again, I don't know anything, right? So these are just, when I share these things, they're not, this is what's true. It's more of, this is what's been useful for me.
Mhm.
And one of the visuals that's always been useful for me is that this system, i.e. Cyndi, is like a radio beacon, right? And so it has a certain level of vibration, and it sends out, like, if there's a big kind of feeling of unworthiness and I know I'm not worth anything, it throws out that beacon into the world, and the world brings me back those experiences. I'm telling it what it wants, right? And when you talked about this coworker disliking you so much, and for a while you were believing it, and it was the cycle, right? So you were believing that you could be disliked
Yes.
for no reason. You were projecting that, the radio beacon was projecting that out, and your coworker was receiving it and giving you what you asked, which is actually, it comes from a Regina Dawn Akers kind of teaching too about what love is. The moment you wrote out all your fear, your anger, your sense of injustice, and then instead of putting that back out into the universe, you held it and gave it to spirit. That's what I heard you say. Like, spirit
Yes.
gave you the invitation to release it. And you said
Yes.
yes. You released it from your energy system. And so you started, your radio beacon changed its frequency, and your coworker responded to your new frequency.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you.
This is what, so when we talk about awakening, we're not talking about awakening into something we're not. We're talking about letting go of what we're not and resting more and more into what we are.
Yes.
So awakening is a kind of a weird word for it, but that you let go of something that was no longer serving, probably never was. So it's a phenomenal story of that. Thank you so
Yes.
much for
Thank
it to this space. Thank you, Judy.
Oh, and I just wanted, somebody asked me, did the video say to do what you had done to get out? Yes, the video showed you how to get out of ice pond if you fall through ice.
It's
So,
crazy. Yeah. But you were there and you paid attention and you watched.
yeah,
So, it's a whole bunch of saying yes to the universe, yes to the truth of who we are.
absolutely. Thank you.
Hi, Natasha.
Hi, Cyndi. I was just thinking, trying to figure out like what experience can I bring to the table today? And for some reason the fire, because I had a fire in 20 COVID year, my house burnt down. Um, it was the started next door. It was a very windy day, and she had an explosion, her gas thing, and so it jumped over to my house. And for some reason, when I got out and my cat and had another cat, the cat got out and I just had this calm, this feeling of complete calm as though everything is okay. I turned around and I watched my house, especially the roof, go up in flames. And I was not like panicked. I was just like, people, the neighbors kept saying, "Are you okay? Are you okay? How come you're not even crying?" And I didn't. It was just like a strange calmness. And I think spirits just kind of took my hand and I felt this calm which carried over for the next week because I had lots of things to do, the insurance, the this, the that. And it was just this feeling of everything is okay. Um, for a while in that house, I kept thinking, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, because I just had a divorce and different things happened, and I thought, it's time for me to move on. I kept thinking that for a couple of months, and I'm thinking, is this the answer to those thoughts? But it's okay if that's how it evolved. It's okay. So it was just this calmness, and I think it was a moment of going back to who I am. Just holding me. Spirit was just holding me and guiding me, comforting me. So I just had to share that. Came up for me.
Well, and I just see, one of the things I love is that we're telling stories about day-to-day stuff, like where to get the U-Haul, and also so-called disasters. And there's so many stories about God coming down and picking me up from the disaster, right? The key recognition is that same ground of our being, the truth of who we are, is available to us in the little things. And I've been watching the insanity here. Like, do we think that whatever this energy is that can bring us that sense of calm when my house is burning down or I'm moving in the middle of a pandemic and just knowing everything's okay? Do we think somehow that we have to save it for the emergencies? That there's only a limited amount of consciousness or supreme bliss or whatever you want to call it. That's the insanity of the separated mind that still wants to hold on to, well, these are my problems, right, Chuck? This one's mine. God's got bigger things to handle now. Hey, Barbara. Thank you so much for that, by the way.
Okay,
Yeah.
I want to expand on what I was talking about in Amy's class yesterday, because I've had glimpses, but this is where I truly think I know who I am, because I meditate to the workbook lessons, and I don't remember what day it was or what. Maybe it was as God, I am as God created me. And when I meditate, I don't expect anything because it never comes. So I was meditating, and I say, the phrase or whatever that's of the day, and all of a sudden, I was getting like, and I've been getting a lot of water scenes, a big pond, and they used to ripple out, but this time they didn't ripple out. I felt the water started bubbling up in one place. And then all of a sudden, I got like a white rays shooting out of it. And then all of a sudden, the water started flowing through me. And then I got more rays, and I got I call it black smoke, but I think that's like the universe or what I don't know how you interpret that. But after I was done, and it was coming through me, and the rays were going up, it was like the rays were going through me. And after I did this, I felt so calm, so peaceful, and I felt held.
Yeah, that's the part of the story that I remember from yesterday, that you were having these visions and you have them, and the density, the negative space gets lifted, and you spend the rest of the day feeling connected. And it really reminded me of how often many of us talk about waking up either in the middle of the night or in the morning feeling really contracted. Yeah, I guess I use the word more than I think, that word contracted, or dense or
Something
scared.
important.
And we say yes to our spiritual practice, and it lifts that. And what I want to just emphasize is that it doesn't just make it so that we could be okay during the day. It is changing our radio frequency, if I'm going to go back to that kind of space. It is purifying, it is cleansing, it's releasing those dark clouds. And the other thing, go ahead. The only other thing I was going to add, Barbara, because this is useful for me at times, but for others, is that we often want to personify or personalize those dark clouds that we step into, but they're really not personal. Anyone, everyone that I pretty much know, just about everyone here. So I know we're all been studying this stuff. So on some level, you accept that there's only one mind. And Amy actually talks about this a lot, and she's leading the next one, but there's only one mind. So when we step into these dark moments, it's not necessarily useful to say these are mine. This is clearing these will make my life better. Actually, every time we say yes to these visions, doing our spiritual practice, we're lifting that darkness from the collective consciousness from the one mind. And that sometimes I need to know that to be able to stand still for the work.
And
So,
also, I know because the other day, it was something about when you heal yourself, or when you're healed.
you're not healed alone.
Yeah, something like that. But the thing is, I know that because when I heal myself, it feels like I can't even put the experience into it, but it feels so damn good.
And all of us that hang out with you, Barbara, we feel it. So, your lightness lightens us. So that's sort of the way all of this works, right?
Hey, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. You too, Nadago. You lighten us all up too. Thank you for being here.
Hi everyone. I love so much being here. So it was so amazing. I had a whole like bed bug thing, and I had no clue what to do. And it was just so amazing how I was just guided in every single step. And yeah, I just followed my guidance. And then I was in so much pain. And then I was guided to take Motrin, so I followed that. And then I was guided, okay, call my sister and have her help me. And so I was able to get a bed and to help my back or whatever. And then I was guided, okay, take some more Motrin because you're still in pain. So I did. And then I was guided, maybe like it was so amazing. And I've got it, okay, you don't need as much, so only take 2 Motrin now. And I did. And then I was guided, and I remembered, oh wait, I'm not this body. That the pain and all that stuff, that's not what I am. And so I was like, I don't need this Motrin. And I remembered who I was. And it's just amazing just how we are just carried every step of the way. And I just love being here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Hi, Alenka. It's so
Hi,
good to have you here.
thank you. Good to be here. This is not a small story. This is I was 18 and I had spent the summer waitressing in Banff, Alberta, which it was a great town. That's Banff School of Fine Arts, as it was called then, was there, and it was really amazing cultural kind of institution. And at the end of the street is a huge mountain, like it was just huge. And I was just pulled to that mountain every day. And towards the end of my stay, I met someone, and we who's in really great physical shape, and we went hiking into the Rockies. And I remember, day after day, we were hiking, and it was beautiful vistas and all that. And finally we got above the tree line. And so it's, rocky and ice and snow. And I had said to him, would you mind, I'd like to go ahead. Could you give me could you wait 10 minutes so that I could experience it alone, but I still felt safe enough, you know, should something happen. And I remember climbing and, you know, over the rocks and, you know, there was a fair amount of effort exerted, and getting to the, sorry, just the phone ringing. Can you hang on a sec, please? I just can't.
Barbara, let's give Alenka a minute and then I'll call on you and bring you back if she doesn't come right back. But while we're waiting for Alenka, I was just sinking in. You're back.
Yeah, sorry, it just,
it's okay.
Anyway, so I'm climbing up and I get to the top and this vista opens. And I thought, it's very hard to express, but so I'm experiencing creation. Just, and I'm part of that. I'm not removed from just this unbelievable openness and beauty. And it was just the most unforgettable moment, just so unforgettable. Yeah. And I was very grateful that I could experience it alone, even though I had the safety of someone, you know, who would be there if need be. But I had to do it alone. And then this magic, I mean, magic is, I don't know the best word for it, just total magic happened. And yeah, that was the spark.
So I'm just gonna, because it's in my space as I'm listening to you, there's this visual of Alenka needing to be alone to feel that aloneness was impossible because we are one with all of creation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's such an interesting thing how we believe that we're stuck in our stories. And even when we're surrounded by other people, we're not interacting with them, where a story is interacting with another story. It's sort of like A Course in Miracles tells us that all words are twice removed from reality. So you separated yourself from all sense of that separation, and in the process was able to experience that there is no separation.
Mm-hmm.
And the hairs on my arms are standing up.
Yeah.
Hopefully that made some sort of sense, but it did here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, it was, and I must say that for years I would see clouds in the distance and I would think it was the mountain. You know, I kept that mountain just very much part of my psyche still.
And here's the other thing, just as Barbara, you're coming on, that's the truth, like the experiences that are being expressed, that's the truth of who we are. And when we ground ourselves in that, when the sanskara or the trauma or the unexpressed past experiences, whatever come up, we can somehow choose to bring those other experiences back to life and rest in them as the pain of whatever that is gets processed. Barbara, where'd you go? There
I am.
Okay.
Alenka, thank you for sharing that. Actually, I live on right out my back door is the mountains of the Rocky Mountains and Banff and Kananaskis and Canmore and all of them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been going there since I was 12 years old on the bus by myself. So
wow.
Yeah, I was just saying that I've been listening to all the wonderful stories, and I don't know if mine's, I don't take it as experience in the sense, ever since I was small, it's kind of, I've always had these different things in me, very self-reliant, know that there's something greater than myself, never questioned it. I traveled across Canada in the 60s when, you know, just on complete trust, just left and just said, everything will be taken care of. And it was for over a year. And then I'm a mountain girl, of course. And I would say, I would have to agree with Cyndi that that carried me, because I realized very, very early, this is just life happening. One thing is happening, and that's it. And that's all that's happening. And so through all when I lost my son to cancer, when I've lost, I had to take care of, I think it was 10 people in 11 years to their passing. But I was never shaken by it. I was awed by it. And then I was a midwife in BC in the very young years, and a lot of home births on the islands there. And between birth and death, they're both such great miracles to watch, and just to be there. So for me, yeah, I've had a lot of, I guess, a lot of heavy experiences through the years. And like I was, what, 13? I think it was 13. And a bunch of boys, I was an army brat, and we'd moved to Civvy Street. And so they all got together and decided to play the game Hang Me, you know, what is it, Hang Me or something, or tie, what is it called? I can't remember. Anyways, Tie Me Up or something. So they threw the rope around my neck and around the poles in the community, and 3 boys hung me, literally. One boy ran in, saw me hanging there, grabbed me, and I guess he saved my life. But I wasn't afraid of it. And when I came out, I wasn't angry at them. You know, I still don't understand that. Like, it's life. Things happen and you go on, and it'll be what it'll be. And it's good. There's no, I don't see bad in anything. Yeah, I had lots of foster kids and adopted kids. I always raised them just to be themselves and trust in who you are. You've got to know who you are first, and then add all the decorations. Add your religion, add your culture, add whatever you want. It's a beautiful book to write, but you have to start with who are you, and know that place. And so that's always been my life. And through that experience, I've just I've done a lot of crazy things, and a lot of I just trust. There's no, I don't believe in things. I really crush the belief thing down. It's just something I just put to the side. It's a neti for me. I really trust in life itself. And I know 2 sayings is a storm never lasts forever. And that carries me through anything. And this too shall pass, just like potty training. I'm done. Thank you.
I love that visual. And thank you. And I am wondering, so we heard a lot of stories, right, of these beautiful moments. Curious, and you don't have to answer because we're going to hand this over to Amy. Did you, I'm going to use the word again, did you contract? Did you feel an emotion? Did you have an inner judgment when you listened to the childhood story of Barbara being hanged and left? And just see if it's there. And if it's there, allow yourself to feel it and release it, or hand it over. And you could literally right now, even though it's not your story, there may be something in you that's sticky, that felt something when you heard that story. And if you did, you could literally give it to Alenka's creation mountaintop story. Do you see what I mean? You could decide at any given time where you're going to place your trust. And you can do the healing that easily. Amy.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. I was having so much trouble getting on. I didn't get a link, and I tried the link that you sent and it didn't work. And anyway, here I am. Thank you, Bill. Bill got me on. So one of the things I'm listening here is to these beautiful stories. And Cyndi, you didn't take the words out of my mouth, but you definitely touched on something that came up for me, was that so many of these stories are these beautiful beautiful awakening stories, and yet sometimes awakening can be, it can feel very uncomfortable at the time. And it's in hindsight that we kind of realize, oh, that's what happened. So my awakening story, like so many of us, I have a number of them. And I'm curious, I'll ask this, if anyone's had awakenings that happened in the dream life, because that's when some of my most powerful awakening moments have occurred. And I'll share this one. I know we only have about 4 minutes left, but in the dream, there's a big ball of light in front of me hanging in space. And it's a bunch of different lights. It's lights flashing on and off. It's like a sphere of flashing lights. And I know in the dream that is, it's God's being, it's all that is. And I sense myself as a light moving into this sphere and merging with the sphere. And I completely merge with it. And I know I'm home. It's like, this is total completeness. And yet, even then, I still retained a sense of my own uniqueness. It didn't leave me. And what I came out of with that was, number one, it showed me both sides of the same coin. And I can still feel the knowingness of being one with this enormous light, and yet also, and being a light, but also at the same time having my own kind of sovereign being. And that's given me so much insight into how oneness expresses in this apparent reality, And so all of us are our own unique lights. And when we join with the big light, we're completely joined, and we know each other's stories. We know everything about each other, and yet we still have our own signature, this own unique signature. And so that's one of my awakening experiences. I've had many, but we'll end with that one. Thank you, Cyndi. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. And rumor has it, Judy, you have a question. Please, you'll have to unmute them. There you go. Oh.
Is there time?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. It's a question about an experience I had. I'm not sure. I still, to this day, am not sure what this was all about. I have an oldest son who has a problem with alcohol and has had for a long time. He went through some pretty traumatic times watching his best friend die in front of him, which put him on that journey. And I was driving him and his other friend into town one day, coming back out to where I live in the country. And this was like about 15 years ago or more. And I'm driving, and all of a sudden there's this boom vision in front of me. I could still see the road. I could drive, everything. The vision was of my son and my niece, who I knew had been a drug addict, and a people in infinity with faces that were grayed, but I sensed they were all addicts of some kind, had an addiction of some kind. And I just started to breathe. My first thought was, do I have a brain tumor? And then I just thought, I'm going to breathe. And this vision stayed with me while I was driving. Got to my house, and I think it happened simultaneously. the vision left. This was broad daylight, okay? The vision left, and every bell and whistle and light came on the dash on my car, everything. And I just drove in, pulled up, and thought, oh my gosh, what's happened? I ran up and phoned my brother, and he said, oh, that's electrical. You better have it looked at. And I forgot to tell you that as I was watching this vision in the vehicle, compassion, great compassion. And then when I called my brother, he said, go have the car looked at. That's not good. And as I was coming down the stairs, I felt this as if I was lifted. And I knew instantly there was nothing wrong with the vehicle. And all I felt was this great compassion, which became great love for everyone I had seen in this vision. So
where's your question?
So I'm still not sure, like to this day, did I have judgments on my son or the people?
We don't have time, like we could talk about this for a while, but I'm gonna give you one option. Okay. We all still walk around believing we're separate beings with separate issues, right? And perhaps that was simply a moment where whatever we want to call consciousness or truth used you to not only heal you as a portal, but allow compassion to flow into the life of your son and your niece and others. So maybe it wasn't personal. Maybe it was just a shift. And one way or another, we all have a purpose. There's a reason we're here. We could talk for a long time about how we were called here. There's a sense here that I ain't here to make Cyndi's life better. There's something else going on. And every time I show up for this work, this vessel gets purified and it allows whatever you want to call God or the divine or the universe to flow through this vessel into Richard's dream. See, Richard, it's always your dream. It's never my dream.
Thank you, Cyndi.
So, but you see what I mean? You don't have to make it personal. It's just awesome. You were used by God. Yeah. Wow. It's and what a great way to end. And there's literally the hairs of my hand on my arms are standing up. Thank you so much. I can feel like the universe shifted in this hour. We brought more love, more light, more joy into this collective. And it's going to be fun to see what happens next. Love us very much.